Hello, this is Brian again. Sorry the last clip cut off. I don't remember exactly where it cut off, but as I was coming over here to this wash, the trail continues that way, but found a plant I have only seen for the first time in my life today. And that's this plant here. I believe the common name is marsh fleabane, I think is the common name. But I know the botanical name for sure is Pluchea odorata. Pluchea odorata. Pluchea odorata. It's a member of the sunflower family, the Asteraceae. And this is the first time I've ever seen it. You'd expect to find it in these washes, sometimes near rivers and creeks. So seeing it for the first time is very much a treat. I wasn't even thinking about this, but I'm glad I saw it today. So it's called Pluchea odorata, and it does have one pretty close relative. I've seen that a few times here in Southern California, but I very rarely come across it, and that's desert arrowweed, Pluchea sericea, S-E-R-I-C-E-A, and Pluchea sericea is a shrub kind of similar in stature to mule fat, which is actually related to, but the leaves are much smaller. They're similarly shaped. They're very narrow, but they're a lot smaller. And instead of the white flowers that mule fat gets, or white flower heads, they get kind of purplishly colored flower heads, kind of similar to Pluchea odorata. See, Pluchea sericea, the arrowweed, is again more of a shrub, whereas this plant, I believe, is a short-lived perennial herb. Could be an annual, but I believe it's a perennial. Probably not a super long-lived perennial. And finding it here was actually quite a nice treat. And it's got these leaves that are definitely broader than its desert arrowweed cousin. And then, of course, we got mule fat seedlings here. So that's pretty cool. That's a cool find. You didn't expect to find it in these riparian corridors. Well, I don't know if this is it's really more of a dry wash. Dry, occasionally inundated wash. So, okay, well, the interesting level of my hike just went up another tenfold by finding that. First time I've ever seen that plant before. So, this turned out to be quite an awesome. Whoa! Now it just went up another tenfold. Oh my God! Look at this. There's a huge hollyleaf cherry. Wow! Oh, this is insane. This thing is huge. Another beautiful Prunus ilicifolia subspecies ilicifolia. This thing is humongous. I rarely see them get this large. Oh, wow, this is insane. Oh, there's a wood rat nest in there, too. Right at the base of the trunks. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, wow. That's an old growth hollyleaf cherry that hasn't been disturbed in many, many years. And here's another plant. There's another interesting native right here. And this is called seaside or salt heliotrope right here. This is Heliotropium curasavicum variety oculatum. Heliotropium curasavicum variety oculatum. And sometimes you'll find it in washes, and a lot of times you'll see it right near the sea where there's some kind of saltiness in the soil. But yeah, this is it right here. Yep, salt heliotrope. Interesting. Sometimes you'll find them here on these bottomlands that sometimes get inundated. Pretty interesting, I gotta say. I think this might be a neighborhood access trail here. That could be worth exploring later. But yeah, if you want to come for an interesting botanizing experience, if you're a plant lover like I am, this is most certainly a place you'll want to come visit. from rare cactus plants, several species of cactus, of course. Interesting wildflowers, huge thicket-forming shrubs. This most certainly is a place definitely worth a visit. Here's a nice old Rhamnus crocea right here. Little tiny leaves. Oddly, I have yet to see its close relative, Rhamnus ilicifolia, which is hollyleaf redberry. Haven't seen that one yet in here. I don't usually see them growing as super commonly together, at least in my experience. Maybe if any of you guys are experienced hikers and hiking many various environments, maybe you come across them more often together than I have. And there's coast prickly pear right here. It looks like coast prickly pear. And there's more of that salt heliotrope again. Really cool little wildflower. It could be Opuntia occidentalis. Again, I have a hard time telling my prickly pears apart, except for usually the chaparral prickly pear with the more rounded pads. Because you got Opuntia littoralis, coast prickly pear, you got Opuntia occidentalis, western prickly pear, and you got Opuntia vasii, mesa prickly pear, and they're all quite similar. I know Fred M. Roberts and Robert Allen's book Wildflowers of Orange County and the Santa Ana Mountains does a pretty good job talking about the characteristics of the long spines, and I always forget to memorize if it's round in cross-section, if it's square in cross-section, or if it's relatively flat in cross-section. Those are usually ways you can usually tell them apart. And I always forget to memorize it like a dummy. An oleander seedling. Huh. That's interesting. A common garden shrub with very toxic sap and beautiful wildflower. I mean, not wildflower. Beautiful flowers, of course. Golf ball. That's pretty cool. I like this canyon. This is really cool over here. This is definitely a cool spot to come kick it. Come get it and come kick it and botanize. And there's an Italian stone pine down here. Interesting. Pinus pinea. This is the tree whose seeds are used to make pignoli. It's like Europe's version of pinion nuts. But yeah, this is Pinus pinea, an Italian stone pine that somehow got established down here. Sometimes you see some random stuff when you come to the bottom of these canyons. It's quite interesting how that happens. Find some really random plants, trees, that you really wouldn't think you would find. I don't know the story behind that guy, but maybe somebody planted it. I mean, it's possible. People do plant trees in random spots. Must get just enough subsurface moisture to be able to power through. That's a pretty lush looking tree. I think those are, wow, I think those are big hollyleaf cherries over there again. There's some huge ones down here. Yeah, those are hollyleaf cherries, all of those. Wow, they get huge, and they're all full of cherries too. Oh man, yo, this one is big. This is another big thicket of them. It's got cherries on them too. Just about ready. Ah, there's a huge root burl down there too, it looks like. Dang! Wow! This is such a cool spot, man. Probably a few other ones here too. Look at that. This is a big one. Boy, I usually don't see them get this big. Even in the Santa Ana Mountains, I've seen them get pretty decently sized in the Santa Ana Mountains. Or in the Santa Ana and Elsinore Mountains. Near Lake Elsinore in southern Orange County. Sometimes you get some pretty decent sized hollyleaf cherries over there, but man, sure quite large over here. And I do feel a spotlight. I do feel some kind of spotlight video coming on sometime today. It's been 4 weeks since I've done any videos, thanks to the nasty heat and national forest closures. Last couple of Sundays have just been brutally hot. It's been around 100 degrees. Last Sunday was like 98 where I live, and Sunday before it was 100 in North Orange County. And with the forest being closed, there was no way I was going to do any local low elevation hikes. Yeah, here we go. Another Chinese elm. Now, these are interesting trees. Of course, I say that about every tree, but for people who might have a passing fancy with them, there is something very odd about this species of elm. And is this one tree or is this multiple? Well, doesn't matter. One thing about these guys is, now, most elms are known for shedding their leaves in fall and going leafless in winter and getting new leaves in the spring. Well, Chinese elm is generally listed as deciduous, but here in Southern California and a lot of other warm climate places where this plant will grow, a lot of times being deciduous and shedding its leaves, it's a complicated matter because it depends on a couple of factors. It depends on how warm the fall and winter are, A, and B, it depends on the individual trees. Maybe there's some genetic differences in between individuals of this species, but if you're really hip to what Chinese elm looks like, it's the elm tree that's usually kind of tall, kind of sometimes lanky, kind of branches kind of spill over a lot, kind of weepy sometimes, and they have kind of mottled colored bark. So it's pretty easy to tell a Chinese elm from pretty much any other elms that are found growing in the United States, even though this is a native of Asia, of course. But the bark's kind of mottled, kind of colorful, as opposed to most other elms that I know of that have gray furrowed bark. Well, so a lot of Chinese elms that are in very warm falls and winters will keep their leaves through the winter months. Some of them are reliably evergreen just about every year, but then there are some that'll shed about half of their leaves, anywhere from 1/4 to 70% of their leaves, and there's some that reliably shed all of their leaves every winter. So there might be some genetic variability in the type of in the Chinese elms. But certain individuals, you'll see them shed their leaves in fall, and they're reliably leafless until late March or even early April out here in Southern California. They'll start leafing out like the end of March or early April. And they'll be completely leafless during the winter. And then some of them will lose maybe about 85% of their leaves, and you'll see some leaves in the lower parts of the crown. And then they'll, again, leaf out more towards March or so, late March maybe. And then there's some that retain about 3/4 of their leaves, and then some of them that reliably retain just about a full evergreen crown. And then a lot of these ones with the variabilities will retain leaves more in warmer winters, except for the ones that are usually fully deciduous. So Chinese elms are quite interesting, and unlike most elms, there are at least a couple of others. These elms flower in fall. Right here, these are the elm flowers right here. So these flower usually in September and October. There's another type of elm that's native to the U.S. called September elm, Ulmus serotina, I believe, Ulmus serotina, that also flowers in September. And then their seeds will ripen off really quickly in October and November, and then the seeds will fall off. Whereas a lot of elms, especially another type of elm that's planted here in SoCal a lot called Ulmus pumila, the Siberian elm, it flowers at the end of winter and early spring before the leaves come out, and sometimes even the seeds will ripen, or at least start ripening before the leaves even open up. And then maybe occasionally you might see Ulmus americana, American elm, maybe occasionally planted, and that's another one that flowers way before it leaves out. Seeds develop usually before the plant leaves out. And American elms can get much larger. Chinese elms maybe up to about 60 feet, but I've seen them a little taller. American elms can probably get up to like 120, 150 feet tall if they're not ravaged by the Dutch elm disease that was brought over about a century ago. And Siberian elms, they're a little more upright, but their crowns are pretty sparse and they got the gray furrowed bark. So I just thought I'd point that out about Chinese elm. Siberian elm and American elm, their leaves turn yellow in fall and shed. Chinese elms, ones that go deciduous, actually can change pretty nice colors. Anywhere from orange, yellow, and reddish, maroon, and even purple. So Chinese elms can actually change pretty nice color in the fall. Alright. Pretty interesting here. Really nice canyon. Well, I'm just going to keep on passing down. I'll see you on another clip.